everyone. Welcome to the program. This is Sunday Politics, live on Channels Television. I'm Joaquim Aloye in Abuja. Let's tell you that the Vice President Kashim Shettima has returned to Abuja, Nigeria, after representing President Bola Tinubu at the just concluded 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. During the session in New York, the VP called on world leaders to recommit themselves to the reform of the United Nations Security Council. He also canvassed a permanent seat for Nigeria and other African countries, stressing that it has since become imperative for the United Nations to strengthen its relevance and credibility in a rapidly changing world. Take a listen to some of what the VP said in New York.
Today, these pillars of our organization are threatened. They risk being broken by the relentless pursuit of individual national priorities rather than the collective needs of the nations that are assembled here today. While commitment to multilateralism offers us the surest guarantee of global action to address the existential challenges we face, singularity and nationalism are undermining the aspirations towards the peaceful and collective resolution of such challenges. The continued manifestations of these challenges testifies to our failings rather than to any lofty achievements on our part. Billions of dollars are being committed to the prosecution of wars and the planning of the embers of conflict. Yet, we always recoil from bringing out the resources we need to build peace and to deliver life's necessities to people.
All right, you heard the Vice President Kashim Shettima speaking on behalf of the nation, Nigeria, at the United Nations General Assembly. But beyond that speech, the VP got a briefing from the president because he was representing the president in Nigeria. So he led the delegation, and there's so many activities on the sideline, on the front line, and every aspect of that meeting at the 79th General Assembly of the United Nations. But what are the benefits? Because that is what concerns us. Everything that anyone that has been there on the bill of Nigeria, paid for by Nigeria, has gone there for the benefit of Nigeria, isn't it? That's what we're made to believe. But how much of these benefits should we be expecting as a people? You see, officials, the ministers, members of cabinet, top government officials who are present there. Some governors are also there. But this is also to help Nigeria move forward on the global stage. Let's speak with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who joins us virtually live. Ambassador Yusuf Maitama Tuga is live for us. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, and it's a pleasure having you on the program tonight.
Thank you for having me, Sean.
I know that in this kind of meetings, you really go, not with bowl in your hands or cup in hand, as though we are begging, but we always, every nation, go with an agenda to the United Nations General Assembly, and the body, United Nations, has its agenda, and the United Nations General Assembly has its purpose, which is meant to achieve every year. But this year, what would you say is the central purpose of Nigeria to UNGA, and did we achieve it?
Well, just as President Tinubu initiated last year, one of the major goals was the reform of the global governance structures. And I'm happy to inform that several countries have joined the bandwagon. This is something that President Bola Tinubu spoke to last year, and it became a recurring theme this year. In fact, it got to the point where the first speaker, President of Brazil, Lula, addressed it almost right away. So when we talk about global governance, we're talking about the United Nations Security Council, where decisions that affect the entire planet are made. And in particular, you find that almost 60% of the resolutions in the United Nations Security Council have to do with Africa. Yet, only 5 countries, essentially the victors, that emerged at the end of the Second World War have permanent seats with veto power. Now, this is a 20th century structure being utilized to govern the 21st century, because, of course, the United Nations is the primary global governing body. So we want to see that body democratized. We want to see more representation. This is something that President Tinubu has been advocating for, and this is something that Vice President Kashim Shettima, who led the delegation, echoed, and it is gaining a lot of steam. The United States has also lent its voice to the need for reforming the United Nations Security Council. This is a major achievement. The second issue, of course, is the reform of the global financial architecture. It is, again, not in sync. It does not favor the global south. The issue of risk, whenever projects are to be funded, investment, trade, favors, all of that favors the global north. We want to see that also reformed. So but there's several other issues that were discussed: migration, counterterrorism, nuclear disarmament, conflict prevention, peacekeeping, where Africa is seeking to establish an African standby force where funding is required, because we're also members of the United Nations, and we contribute funds to the United Nations for peacekeeping. And so it's almost like a piggy bank when there's conflict all over the world, because all the countries, the 193 countries that are members of the United Nations, contribute funds, and such funds are allocated for peacekeeping so that it relieves some of the pressure from the countries that within the conflict area. So there was this resolution that established 70% funding that would come from the United Nations, and then African countries have to come up, the African Union has to come up with 30%. It's something that we are not in favor of. And, these are some of the issues that were discussed there. Of course, the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, that are clearly not likely to be met. Nigeria is calling for an extension and finding better ways of funding them, which has to do with the restructuring of the global financial architecture. Nigeria, you see, part of the problem we have also is that our reputation out there in the world and in the United Nations is far bigger than our own perception of ourselves. Nigeria is highly reckoned with on the global stage, highly reckoned with within the United Nations. It sponsors a lot of resolutions and initiatives, and it is one of the key clogs in terms of coalition building to support initiatives. So Nigeria was the sponsor of, along with the African group, of the United Nations resolution on tax reform, which we want to see turned into a UN framework convention on tax reform, so that huge multinationals would stop cheating on taxes. Developing countries would gain more from such taxes that accrue. There's something referred to as the transfer price system that a lot of multinationals use to evade tax, where they move funds within their own organization from one company to the other, and frame it as if there's movement of funds from two or more separate entities, whereas it's just in-house. So these are the sort of things that are looked at the global stage, and solutions are preferred, and Nigeria is leading. Debt is another issue, because the debt crisis that a lot of African countries are facing, and the increasing debt of several others, because there's a global downturn of of economies, of economic activity. It's something that needs to be addressed holistically. And climate change. Before we left for UNGA, half of the city of Maiduguri was submerged in water, you're aware. So the effects of climate change are real. You know, it's something that the world needs to do something about. And Nigeria is a key player. It has a huge voice in terms of representing the global south, being the largest country in Africa in terms of population and size of economy. Digital diplomacy, I've already mentioned migration and so forth. Let me stop here.
All right. So, Minister, I see that from, I studied and I looked at the President Bola Tinubu's speech at the 78th, his address to the General Assembly, the 78th session. And now you look at the speech of the Vice President. There are almost a repeat and a copy and paste proposals from those two speeches of Nigeria's presentation to the UN General Assembly. For example, debt forgiveness. It was one of the things that President Bola Tinubu canvassed for.
Yeah, but it's not copy and paste.
No, I mean, not in that sense. I'm not saying it literally word for word, but I know that over the years, several governments in this country had canvassed for similar things. They are gone for asking for a permanent seat at the UN Security Council. They've asked for regional peace within the African sub-region or West Africa or on the continent. Illicit financial flows and how the wealthiest nations can help to ensure that those who are reaping the nations of Africa off are not benefiting outside of the continent. These are some of the issues. But the question will be, which of these have as Nigeria be able to benefit from? Debt forgiveness, did we benefit from it? Do we have it? We
benefited from debt forgiveness.
Permanent seats on the Security Council, do we have it?
Under President Obasanjo, we benefited from debt forgiveness. Have you forgotten?
No, I'm saying from President Tinubu from last year, and now we're talking about this year's benefit. So are any of our proposals been listened to? Has anything been granted?
It's a process. It's not an event. It's not just an event. It's a process. It takes time. But you have to be there. You have to be present. And then these things happen. They don't happen overnight. We're talking about the entire planet taking a decision, and then it cascades down, and then you start feeling the effect. So the effect that you felt when the last time we had debt forgiveness did not just happen with one UNGA. That's just it. And if you're talking about even health, global health, pandemics, and all of that, and the fact that we are now talking about producing our own vaccines after what had happened during the COVID pandemic, these are things that have palpable results that you can see, but don't expect that as soon as UNGA wraps up, that's it. The entire debt of the global south.
But we asked for it last year. That's the point I'm making. That some of the proposals are repetitive, do we have a progress? Do we have it?
Even in my submission, I alluded to the progress that has been made. Last year, when President Tinubu talked about the reform of the United Nations Security Council, he was one of few voices that was to lead on that. This year, the very opening, President Lula talked about it. Before UNGA even started, a few days before the UNGA convened, Linda Thomas Greenfield, the permanent representative of the United Nations, said they are in support of African countries getting 2 seats in the United Nations Security Council. The US was not talking about anybody getting additional seats the year before. So you can see that there's been a shift in their position. And it is the pressure that countries such as Nigeria put on the global stage and bilaterally on these countries that makes them shift. So we are getting results.
So, I mean, there are those who fear, Minister, that if those, for example, the proposition for a permanent seat at the Security Council, there are 15 nations, 5 permanent and 5 non-permanent. The question will be, will Nigeria be in the cut? Will Nigeria get a seat there, considering what has become a diminishing presence or influence of Nigeria, or even on the African continent, economy-wise, or even politically? There are those who will say our non-alignment policy and our foreign policy is giving us a disadvantage in global politics. Are we rethinking this our stance?
How is it giving us a disadvantage?
Minister, for example, let me give an example, Minister.
That is why when I made that, when I was making my submission at the very beginning, I said there's a huge disconnect. There's a disconnect between the perception out there of Nigeria, the reputation that Nigeria has, and our own in-country perception of ourselves. We don't know how much other countries value Nigeria's positions, value Nigeria's participation, how much of a huge reputation we have out there as a leading country, not only in Africa, but in the global South. And of course, if you look at the African continent, Nigeria is the only country in Africa that has more or less a permanent seat in the equivalent of the United Nations Security Council within the African Union, which is referred to as the Peace and Security Council. It's the only country on the continent, not South Africa, not Egypt, not any of these countries. Nigeria is the only one. There's a reason for that, because
so Minister, this is the point.
Leadership. If you look at ECOWAS, even ECOWAS, whenever there is a crisis, look at the list of number of countries that have led ECOWAS, number of heads of state. You will find that Nigeria leads in times of crisis. This seat is supposed to be rotated, but others repose a lot of confidence in our leadership, in our fairness, in our decision making, and they give us this leadership. They ask us to lead whenever there is crisis.
So, I mean, Minister,
so internally we're talking about a lack of foreign policy. For crying out loud, read the Constitution and see what's in there. Our foreign policy objectives are enshrined in the Constitution. So people that say that we don't have a foreign policy or we don't have foreign policy objectives, need to really go back to the Constitution.
But Minister, sorry, apologies. Yeah, apologies, Minister. For those who look at the foreign policy, and strictly, if you look at it, majorly, the headline of our foreign policy talks about the promotion and protection of Nigeria's national interest. And
that's
if you look,
first objective.
Yes,
objective.
That's why I said the headline. Absolutely, the headline of it.
So tell me which country leads without saying that they want to protect their national interest? There's no country that begins with listing its foreign policy objectives without mentioning its national interest.
So, Minister,
that's number one.
In terms of influence and economic power, these are how countries of the world are being rated.
Yes.
You look at the wealthiest countries of the world, they're rated by their economic powers or their military powers. And you look at Nigeria, Nigeria is rated maybe number 4 in terms of GDP on the continent. There is a dwindling on our influence.
No, that's not
Minister,
right. That's not right.
What data do you have, sir?
The largest economy, number 1 in GDP.
What data do you have? As of what year, Minister?
Continent. Huh?
What data do you have? As of what year, Minister?
What data do you have?
I've just told you that Nigeria ranks below South Africa, Egypt,
the National
Rwanda.
Bureau of Statistics. National Bureau of Statistics is in the process of rebasing our economy. The informal, look at the size of our informal sector. That is not being measured, that is not being included in the measure of GDP. So let's not talk about
No, no. So, Minister, the question here is not about, as you are speaking, as a foreign minister, and you, I'm talking to you. We can't measure who loves Nigeria more than any other person. This is our country. We love it. And when we are having this conversation, I think it's in the best interest of our nation. But the
self-flagellation is the self-flagellation that I want us.
But the question is, sometimes we need to
while
speak.
while you and I
we need to have the truth to be able to get the right perspective
while
for us to move forward.
While we're discussing facts, let's put aside the self-flagellation. Okay,
no, I'm putting facts, and I've given you what I have. Maybe it's different from what you have as a government official.
We don't have to keep beating ourselves down when the world looks at us differently. I'm not saying that we should not have constructive criticism, but to keep on self-flagellating to the point of destroying the country is not something that really should be condoned. We need to.
I think when we are having some kind of academic and this kind of good conversation around the progress of our country, those ones that look sore, that are not really looking good for us to have a better conversation, doesn't mean that we are bringing down our country.
I'm not saying to you everything is hunky-dory.
Minister,
we have challenges,
the question,
but so does the rest of the world.
So that we don't lose the focus of my question.
Are you aware that there has been a global economic downturn? Are you aware that Europe is going through an energy crisis? We're not the only ones.
Minister, don't let us lose the focus of the conversation and the question I'm about to ask. And my question is that when we're talking about global influence, countries of the world are actually working to improve, and they're rated by their economic and sometimes by their military powers. The question is, for example, the BRICS nation, there are those who are suggesting that maybe an alignment to that bloc may give us an edge. What do you think, and what is the stance of the Bola Tinubu government in that regard?
The Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration outlined its foreign policy agenda from the very beginning. And it is centered on strategic autonomy. It's something that has served us, well. We were non-aligned during the Cold War, when the world was structured along a bilateral axis, bipolar axis. The United States and the Western countries on one side, the Soviet Union and its bloc on the other side. Okay, we chose to be non-aligned. We got along with both sides, and we did well, along with the likes of India and several other countries that were non-aligned. And they're taking the same position now. If you look at the advantage that India has gained from that, the fact that it gets along with the United States, it gets along with China, it is part of the BRICS, where both countries, where India and China are members, and it's equally a member of the G20. Incidentally, so is China. It's a member of both. So this is what we are looking to do as well. There's nothing that says that we must align with one side against another.
So it's not on the agenda of this government to join BRICS, for example?
Why not?
Are we proposing it officially?
When the time is right. We've never said that we're not joining BRICS.
But are we officially proposing to BRICS nations?
It's about timing. We have to time ourselves and indicate. We've already indicated our interest in joining, but we have not formally written, and we will do so at the right time when it is going to be the most advantageous for us to do so. But we need to. There are a lot of reforms that are even going on internally for us to even make that move. So it's a matter of timing. It doesn't mean that we went to China. President Tinubu was in China, don't forget, recently. Vice President Kashim Shettima also visited China before that. And in all these engagements, we have made clear that we are interested in joining BRICS at the right time.
So, Minister, so if debt forgiveness is part of our agenda as a nation, just like the Obasanjo government was very successful, so I look at the nations that Nigeria is owing, 5 of them, which makes up approximately 593, almost 600 million US dollars that Nigeria has gotten in loan. China is leading the pack with about $4 billion that we are owing that country. Are we talking to China for some kind of debt forgiveness if we went to the global stage for debt forgiveness?
That is not what we're discussing with China. And when it comes to the issue of debt, look at the debt to GDP ratio even of Nigeria. So we're not even amongst the critically indebted nations when they talk about debt. When we talk about debt of developing countries, Nigeria is not in that sort of a precarious situation. In fact, as a matter of fact, China is prepared to lend more. China is prepared to invest more in Nigeria in terms of infrastructure development and other things. So that is not, but you see, what you're failing to take into consideration is when we talk about debt forgiveness, we're not necessarily referring to ourselves. Nigeria is considered to be a leading nation, not just on the African continent, but in the global south. So when we speak on behalf of Africa, we speak on behalf of developing nations, we speak on behalf of the global south. And we speak as the largest Black nation on the planet. So that you have to bear that in mind.
Absolutely. I never forget that because, I mean, a lot of the times on the international stage, when we're having conversations, I'm not sure there is a finer country than our nation. But our challenges and the way and manner we approach them over the years, leadership has been a major problem for us to overcoming our challenge. And that's why it is important for us to put our situation in perspective. Yes, we're a big nation, but millions and millions of our people are in abject poverty. So when we are on a global stage, there are conversations that will benefit the Nigerian people, and which is one thing that, that bothers the mind right now. And I'd like to know, what would you say are the direct benefits, immediate low-hanging fruits that this contingent that went to the 79th UN General Assembly meeting have come back with?
Funding of the Sustainable Development Goals, extending it. Don't forget that the Sustainable Development Goals is addressing all of these issues. And just like you rightly pointed out, a substantial number of the poor on the planet are in Nigeria. So when we talk about tackling poverty, when we talk about tackling food insecurity, when we talk about improving inclusivity, funding of infrastructure development, and so on and so forth, which is what essentially what the health challenges, it's what the SDGs are about. And that's what we're speaking to. We're saying, extend the SDGs, find ways of funding it better, find ways of reforming the global tax convention. And that way, we get better funding, we improve, we ameliorate the situation of millions of Nigerians. But it doesn't mean that we will just go out there and just say, Nigeria, Nigeria, Nigeria. No, we have to speak also equally on behalf of others that are looking to us for leadership. And with that responsibility comes them acquiescing to our leadership, them acquiescing to more and more Nigerians in leading positions on the global stage.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. It's a difficult one, protecting the interests of the nation on a global stage. You've got your job cut out for you. You're an ambassador, and you've got, you know this. Sometimes we on the ground, those of you who are thinking more internationally, those of us who think more locally about our people, we might be a bit more emotional about how this affects the bottom line. That's the average person. Well, thank you so much indeed, Honorable Minister, for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Maitama Tuga there, speaking with us. We take a break, everyone, but when we return, we'll dwell on the state of the nation and the APC in the saddle. The man who speaks officially for the All Progressives Congress, Felix Moka, will be joining us next on the program, everyone. Join us again. Thanks so much, everyone, for staying with us. We'll be getting to talk about the internal affairs of the APC, and we'll also focus on how they're handling things, the state of affairs in the nation. But let's give you some update on what is happening politically. Governor Siminalayi Fubara, the governor of Rivers State, has been responding to his political opponent, and he said that his opponent are now frustrated and no one can intimidate him. These are some of the choice of words from Governor Fubara. Take a listen to a bit of what he said earlier today.
I have been saying it and I continue to say it. The dean doesn't need introduction, but the fact that he's in the service, he's sitting as the primate we're seeing. That's the truth. But you see, anybody that is making noise for recognition is a sign that you have lost it. When you make noise, let me tell you, for those people who have cars, when you get to your house, there's a way you horn. Your children will know, daddy, not daddy horn. No. If you don't have a car, there's a way you walk. So that one, daddy footstep. But if you have to enter your house and say, don't you know I'm your daddy? Then you have a problem. By the special grace of God, I don't need introduction. I have the name and I am the one standing here.
Dissect it, diffuse it the way you want, but maybe it's going to be our focus tomorrow on the program. But tonight, our focus is more about the state of the nation and some other issues, where the ruling APC has postponed its National Caucus and National Executive Committee meetings indefinitely. The meetings initially were scheduled for the 11th and 12th of September, but now being postponed without a new date being fixed. Additionally, the party did not provide any reason for the postponement. Aside that, there have been issues related to the party leadership either at the center or in some selected states where they are having issues. And some members of the party are coming forward to show their agitations. Let's speak with a man who is in the know of all of this, who has the authority to speak on behalf of the party. It's Felix Moka, who is the National Publicity Secretary of the APC. Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Moka, for joining us tonight.
Shehu, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Why did you, because you didn't, in that your press statement, which I read, you did not state the reason why you postponed your NEC meeting. It's being a reason for the criticism of your party by some members of your party that how can a party be against its own constitution and has not held a NEC meeting for this long?
Thank you so much, Shehu. No, there's no tension between our constitution and the practice of what happened. We postponed our caucus and NEC meetings because it was exigent to do so. Now, you know, anyone who is familiar with the party operations and the way our constitution is constituted will appreciate that, you know, this is a statutory, meaning party statutory events. They're not, you know, the NEC and caucus meetings are not called at the whim of anyone. They're called in accordance with the Constitution. And there are certain people who are required to attend those, you know, two meetings. And, you know, the president is one of them. But, you know, unfortunately, the president was, you know, out engaged in very important national assignments and engagements, traveling to, you know, bolster Nigeria's prestige, standing, and, you know, his campaign. to win, foreign investment into our economy. So, unfortunately, he was, not able to, attend. And, our party, we are a constitutional, party. We take our constitutional provisions very seriously. And so, we needed to ensure that when we have this meeting, all of the, leadership sectors of the party are able to be present so that we can deliberate on very, significant points.
Fundamentally, it was because of the president's absence that you postponed it.
Look, yes, that's one of the points because, as you know, the president was traveling, in China and, returned into the UK and was meeting with, with King Charles, at the Buckingham Palace. Those are important national engagements, which, even as a party, we were, unable to sacrifice, on this point because, again, he was already out and, needed to.
There are those who would disagree
with
the decision of the leadership of the party that the party should not be held to ransom by the disposition of one member of the party. Every member of the party is subject to the decision and the decision of the leadership of the party. And the question will be, how many times under your constitution are you supposed to hold a NEC meeting in a year?
Shehu, that's not even the question, and I don't think this is a matter of controversy. The party reserves the authority to schedule its caucus and NEC meetings. We scheduled it, but because of exigent circumstances, we postponed. We didn't cancel the meetings.
Indefinite postponement without specific date.
Shehu, first of all, the constitution of APC requires that a certain period of notice is given to convene any of those, two meetings. You don't just convene a caucus meeting or a NEC meeting. You are required under constitutional obligation to give notice, a period of notice to convene those meetings. So, once for justifiable reason, a meeting is, postponed, you again have to follow the constitutional dictates to schedule or reschedule that meeting.
But you don't have a date now.
No, because we're consulting.
So I'm asking you, because you're a lawyer and you know the ramifications of my question, and that's why you danced around it. The question is, how many times in a year is your party supposed, under your constitution, is supposed to hold a NEC meeting?
Shehu, NEC is before the national convention of the party, NEC is the ultimate authority outside of the national convention of the party. We have the National Working Committee, but NEC sits, above that.
But how many times, Mr. Moka? I mean, that is a direct and straight question, sir.
That's not the point.
Yeah, no, there's a point.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Your party might be in breach of your own constitution. When was the last NEC meeting? How many times is your party supposed to hold a NEC meeting? We are just holding your feet to the fire based on your own rules and your constitution as a ruling party in Nigeria. Maybe you're not hearing what members of your party are saying, that the administration of your party is less than purposeful because of indecisions like this.
You can quibble all you want about a party constitution, but what I tell you is that our constitution understands, and actually if you bother to read the constitution, it understands that there must be critical interface between all of the levels of authority of the party. Circumstances are often beyond the control of even the highest body of the party.
To the point that you will be in breach. You understand what I'm saying as a lawyer? Your party has been in breach of your own constitution.
Shehu, please, when you ask a question, give me the time and the moment.
This is the third time I'm asking the same question, sir.
And I'm responding to your question.
And you're not able to answer direct questions.
No.
How many times the party are able to, is the party supposed to hold the next meeting, sir?
The fact that you say it, I am the spokesman of the party. And I am sure you do not know or understand our constitution better than I do. And, I think you need to just, stay still and listen for me to explain to you. Because, you can speak about, and I'm a lawyer, by the way, and I don't know that you are.
I'm not.
You're not. So I think, you must take a moment to listen to what I'm saying. And that is that, you know, when you speak about our party's constitution, you speak about it from a very limited, you know, point of view. Because, you know, yours is, you think everything is a straitjacket. You know, you can call a meeting tonight. If there's, you know, a tornado, and I know there's not one, but if there's a circumstance that overrides that notice of meeting, listen, that notice of meeting will, irrespective of the context of that notice, irrespective of the, you know, particular specific moment the notice was issued, that notice can, and, you know, the party has the authority to suspend that notice. And that's what we've done. And you cannot second-guess the party as to its reasons for postponing its meetings. Postponement, even for UNGA, can happen if the circumstances warrant. So I don't think we should get into that conversation about whether or not the party, in fact, had any valid reasons to postpone its, you know, meetings, caucus or NEC. These are party organs. Members of the party organs are human beings who bear consciousness to manage, you know, that process. So in the, you know, wisdom of the party, the meetings we scheduled needed to be postponed, and they were postponed. And I think that we shouldn't be talking about that. We should be talking about, you know, what's, you know, next for the party. And what's next is that the party, as we speak, is consulting in order to reschedule those meetings, and they will be rescheduled. A new date, I will announce the new dates once the consultation is done to ensure that everyone...
For some reason, there's a physical difficulty with your chair is sinking, and I hope your party is not. Your chair is sinking.
No, this is China sinking. This is not my party.
No.
It's your own...
No.
You know,
we're going to fix it.
And you need to fix a better chair. You know, because I did nothing to make your chair fix.
I'm just speaking figuratively.
Absolutely.
Well, let's take a break so that we can fix Mr. Moka's chair. He's sinking, but I hope his party is not. We'll be back
that's on channel.
After this break.
That's on Channels Television.
We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone. Now, we've rescued Mr. Moka's chair and himself from sinking. Rescuing your party from sinking also is very critical. And I'm looking at the agitation of the members of your party, and I don't want us to go into the dialectal and into the letters and the details of it, because critically you have not been able to answer the question as to how many times your party will answer, who should hold the NEC meeting. But more critically, sir, is the criticism about the leadership of this country and the handling of your party of it. In fact, a former member of your party, which you responded to, Mr. Lukman, has said that your party's how many years in office at the helm of affairs is worse than the 16 years of the PDP. And you look at the indices. How do you defend the activities of this government led by your party in the manner in which Nigerians are suffering? The hardship is neck-breaking.
First of all, back on the issue of, you know, NEC, you're wrong. You know, our party constitution provides the parameters and the guide and standards for us to convene those critical meetings, you know, and the party reserves the authority to postpone, modify when it holds meetings. And it's not just twice that we can hold our NEC and caucus meetings. The party reserves the right to hold those meetings 20 times if we wish. If there are reasonable justification for those meetings, we can hold it as many times as we want.
But you're wrong, Mr. Moka. And I'll read your party's constitution to you, sir.
Please go ahead.
Respectfully, your party's constitution, Article 25, sub B says, the National Executive Committee shall meet every quarter. Shall meet every quarter, and you know the implication of that particular word. Shall meet every quarter and or at any time decided by the national chairman or at a request made in writing by at least 2/3 of the members of the National Executive Committee, provided that not less than 14 days notice is given for the meeting to be summoned.
What's the meaning of what you've read?
Shall meet every quarter. That means it means 4 times a year.
Did it say that meetings of NEC and caucus scheduled may not be postponed or shall not be postponed? You know, you're speaking to nothing, because, you know, the party, like I said, the NWC, in consultation with the leaders and members of the party, can determine to meet 20 times
so
a
that's
year.
why I said,
no,
yes,
please,
you can meet more than the prescribed time.
And so, but
the party, the minimum that you can meet is 4 times a year.
No, hang on.
This is your constitution. You can look at it.
Listen, I don't need to. I'm a lawyer, 36 years at the bar. I don't need to. I have
Harvard
read
trained too.
And Harvard trained. Thank you. I have read the Constitution back and forth a million times. There's nothing in the Constitution that forbids the party from postponing a meeting that was scheduled if there are valid, justifiable circumstances for that. And the party is the sole authority to make that
the point in
examination.
Here, sir. The point I'm making to you, sir, is the minimum required by your constitution to hold the NEC meeting.
We scheduled a meeting that had to be postponed. And, that's about it.
How many times have you heard it this year?
Sheung, please, let's not quibble about, nothing. That is not the point. We scheduled a meeting that did not hold. We postponed. And we are within our institutional and constitutional authority to do so. Just like any board meeting of any organization may be scheduled and postponed if there are valid, justifiable circumstances. Look, Sheung, the point we should be, discussing here is that our party was elected via our president to govern this country. And that program is unfolding as we expect it to. When you allude to circumstances of, difficulty, of even what some may refer to as hardship.
Is it some people?
For people.
You don't feel the hardship,
No,
Mr. Moka?
Sheung, please. We're talking about semantics here. You use the language. And I'm saying that some may call it, difficult. Some may call it hardship. Whatever language you use, the point is that our government has embarked upon a, very consensus, intentional program meant to address the rot, the deep rot that we have lived with. Whether anyone wants to hear it or not, truth is that we have actually, through the years, decades, run a phantom economy. An economy that betrayed itself, that made sure that it could not deliver to Nigerians the promise of sustainable development or even economic growth. What this president is doing is what presidents before him, before he even thought of becoming or running for office, what they ought to have done, they didn't do. And every, administration before him simply kicked the can down the road for the next president to, manage. This president was inaugurated and decided, listen, enough is enough. I will take responsibility, do what no other president before me was willing to do, which is to confront the behemoth, the monster in the room, and say, we've had enough. Mr. Monster, you need to get behind us so we can move ahead. Now, what you may refer to as, some of the transient, temporary, momentary, fleeting, that will settle, difficulty or hardship, are inevitable. I think anyone, I don't know, whether you sit here every day, you do these shows, you have 1,000,001 people who come to your show. Please, name one person who has said that the fundamental predicate of the reforms of the administration was flawed. No one, even those in the private sector, the Dangotes of this world, have come out to tell you that the core of this administration's policy, economic policy, were or are inevitable, and that there's no second guessing it. Now, listen, what I think we should do today is to quit this conversation about, being revisionist, to see whether or not was subsidy removal, justifiable, was the floating of the exchange rate, justifiable. We need to begin to figure out, and you, Sheung, like your colleagues in the media, you all need to, I think, refocus your attention, not to the question of whether subsidy ought to have been removed, whether it was justified, because that question and answer, please, let me finish this thought.
Yeah, because we're running out of time.
Please.
Yeah.
That question is a settled question. What we need to be discussing today and tomorrow is how we manage the proceeds and the, of just the subsidy removal and the economy going forward to ensure that we continue to climb out of this generational mess that we have been.
Mr. Felix Moka, unfortunately, I don't even have time to respond to some of these issues. But well, we must leave it at that. But thank you.
Buy more time and respond if you wish. But I know you have no response.
Well, no. We'll
because you agree.
I mean, if you can, you can come back tomorrow. If you can, you can come back tomorrow. Let's have this conversation.
I will come tomorrow.
But that's our show for tonight. We're totally out of time. Many thanks everyone for watching. We continue this conversation tomorrow, everyone. Good night.